Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this Audit Committee meeting. I'm going to start with the first item on the agenda, and that is apologies for absence and substitutions. Are there any apologies or substitutions this evening? No? I think we've got a full house, haven't we? Yeah. Okay, so we'll move to item 2. To approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 25th of July 2023. If members are happy to accept the minutes as a true and accurate record, can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
Sorry, move, Chair.
Thank you. Seconded. Okay, all those happy with the minutes? Thank you very much. Then we'll move to item 3, so that declarations of interests. Do members have anything to declare, any interest to declare? No? Okay. We'll move to the next item, which is item 4, the Internal Audit Draft Annual Report 22 to 23. I'm going to, I think what we'll do is ask representatives of BDO to introduce their report, and then we'll open up the item to members for questions or comments on the report, and then if there's any comments or questions from officers, then that can also be included. So, Max, am I okay to bring you in? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I'll do a sort of, is that okay? Is that audio okay? Yeah? I'll do a very sort of brief summary on our annual report, which you recall was presented in draft at the last committee. So since the committee, we've finalised 2 more reports, one of which is the workforce strategy, which has come out as limited in effectiveness. So this sort of keeps our opinion, our final opinion, as the same as what was presented in draft at the last committee. There is one review still ongoing where we're in our field work and reporting stage, which is on the counter fraud and corruption strategy review. However, based on the current sort of status and opinions of our reviews, on balance, our opinion is sort of as it remains from last time. So that's the only real change to that report. I'll pause at this stage to sort of invite any questions on that. Gertrude is also online, so he'll be able to answer any questions as well, but I'm happy to take any.
Thank you very much, Max. Okay, so we'll open this up to comments or questions from members. Do members have any comments or questions on the report? Councillor Ruth Strong.
Yes, on page 13, there are references to difficulties with delays due to difficulty in recruiting. Has there been any progress on this?
Mike, are you happy to come into that?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we do have difficulties with the senior leadership team at the moment. So we currently have 1 director vacant and 1 director off sick. We've improved the situation because obviously Fran has now been appointed as interim corporate director for the next 12 months. And we're working well together and starting to develop that. Obviously, we'd welcome the one who's off sick back to the council. At that point, we'll be back to full establishment, but that's just a process we need to go through and manage. So things are looking positive. Recruitment is difficult out there. We are looking to recruit a head of finance and IT on the, I think it's going to the ACSC on the 4th of October. We have 2 excellent candidates for that, so hopefully I'm very positive we will manage to recruit to that position on that day. But clearly that's a member decision and not mine. But you know, so things are moving on and improving. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Any other comments or questions from members? Councillor Alison Hunt, I just remembered.
Thank you, Chair. Does this mean that Fran is doing 2 jobs? And is anybody doing her previous job?
At the moment, a little bit of both. However, we are looking at potential backfilling arrangements for my role on a temporary basis. I think we've just It's fairly recent, and we're just seeing how, you know, adjusting to the role and working out the workload, and then we will look at potential backfilling arrangements if that's necessary.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't think there are any more comments or questions from members. I suppose from the chair, I'd just like to say, after going through the report, and obviously I recognise a lot of information to try and digest everything, I think we can all recognise the challenges that this authority has faced when it comes to trying to run services, especially when funding has significantly diminished in recent years. And that's partly down to the government cuts that we've endured, and that has to be recognised. And we're not alone in that challenge. Many authorities are facing similar situations, and I think, as the report set out in front of us, areas for improvement, I would say as a newly elected member and someone that's just recently come into office here, I really do believe that officers and the staff don't hide from the challenges that we face as an authority. And I think that should be commended, because there are some places, you know, that I've been involved with in the past and I've been made aware of that isn't always the case. And I think staff are honest about the challenges that we face here, and that should be welcomed. You know, it is important that we just continually try to improve and ensure that we have robust systems in place, and I'm confident that people are working towards that. I think just in terms of many areas of the report where it does show in my opinion, it shows quite a lot of areas where we are substantial, we meet substantial and moderate assurances, and that should be welcomed, and with only a few limited areas needing improvement. And I think in terms of the workforce strategy, we can't hide away from the fact that councils are finding it difficult to retain staff at the moment. And I suppose in our situation as a smaller authority, and compared to some of the other larger authorities neighbouring here, they can offer more and more offer in terms of higher salaries that sometimes it's difficult for us as a smaller authority to compete with. So I do think that should be taken into account when we look at these things. The report's also highlighted that the council has a really good grip of the area of building control and development management, achieving substantial in both categories. And I think, again, that's a really positive thing to see. We sort of had thumbs up across that area. And I think it's important that, you know, yes, we do look at the areas that we need improvement, but also look at the good things that we're doing and talk about the positive things sometimes. So I think that's all I wanted to say, really, and just to cover them areas. I think it is, you know, important for me to put those views forward. But thank you to BDO, and thank you to the officers for bringing this report to this meeting. Are members happy to, I suppose, just receive the report then? Yeah. Thank you. So we'll move to item 5 then, which is the internal audit progress report. Can I ask BDO, would you like to say something on this and introduce the report? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this report is an update on the progress of our delivery against the plan. So we've completed 3 and finalised 3 reviews in the past, or since the last committee. And we've actually got quite a few that are coming to the next committee. So you'll see in the bullet points where we're quite a way through the field work, or actually the draft report phase on quite a few. So that's just to prepare yourself for the next committee. There might be a sort of larger agenda of reports to receive. We've started, you'll see from the table, so we've virtually completed the last year's plan with exceptions to that counter fraud and corruption strategy review. And we've made a sort of good start on this year's plan, as I say, with quite a few reviews in the fieldwork stage, and also the council tax and NDR report to be presented to this committee. So I'm going to jump slightly ahead past the workforce executive summary, because we've got the full report slightly later on as an appendices, and I'll cover that in more detail there. So if I just jump slightly forward to the main financial systems report, I'll give a very brief summary on this and the council tax and NDR report before inviting any questions. The main financial systems is a cyclical review that we do, looking at different aspects of the financial systems. So this year's review focused on treasury management and payroll. Overall, we've given moderate assurance for both the control design and effectiveness, with a few medium-level findings around the treasury management practices not being in place. Drafts were prepared back in 2021, but they weren't formally adopted, which is required by the Treasury Management Code of Practice. Again, a risk register not in place specifically for treasury management, principally to monitor the macroeconomic risks and also control risks around procedures. So again, we do recognise that actually through the treasury management strategy statement, there are sort of general risks identified, but we'd probably expect more regular ongoing monitoring through some sort of risk register to ensure that actually controls are in place to manage and mitigate those. And then finally, the third key point probably to bring to your attention is around the reconciliations between the Aggresso finance system and the bank statements, which were in the 4 instances we looked at between November, 3 instances between November and January this year. Due to staffing capacity challenges, they were completed, but just slightly later than we'd expect, so into the following month. So that broadly sort of summarises the main financial systems review. Moving on to the council tax and NNDR review, where I'm pleased to say we provided substantial assurance on both control, design and effectiveness. So this review looked at the council tax, how it's, and NNDR, and how it's administered, including sort of billing, discounts, reliefs, exemptions, write-offs. Also around debt recovery, and then the reporting to management, principally around collection rates and the speed in which processes are being completed by. So the only sort of real key finding here to draw to your attention, there was a low finding, but the medium one I'll pick up on here was around NNDR, new NNDR liabilities and the processing of those, whereby they weren't necessarily completed regularly within the 14-day service level target. Having said that, hopefully you get the sense by the opinion broadly controls in this area were strong and were exercised effectively. So I'll pause at that point to invite any questions before moving on to the workforce strategy review. Andy's also in the room who leads this team and may be able to answer any of the questions as well.
Thank you very much. Members, have you got any comments or questions on this item? Councillor Alison Hunt.
Referring to the reconciliations between the banks and Aggresso, these were due to be reviewed, I understand, by the target date was October 2023. Where are we with this? Are we on target and is that completed? Is the training completed?
So in terms of following up on that recommendation, we haven't followed up yet because we tend to start from October. So if the recommendation is due by October, we'll follow up on that before the next committee. Unfortunately, Tina's not able to attend today. Am I able to defer to yourself, Mike, to answer that at all? Or?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I believe they're all up to date, but, you know, Tina would know the exact position, but I can certainly get you a position statement after this meeting, but I believe they're all brought up to date now. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Creamer.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just on the actual concerns, I mean, I think a lot of that will be down to actually staff issues as well, and when actually sorted, hopefully everything will actually start to come together, especially planning for vacancies, etc., etc. But just on the strengths, on the areas of strength, on the policies of council tax and the council tax reduction scheme in particular, being as that's unusual now for councils to actually deal with that, I'm very pleased to see that's an area of strength, and hopefully we'll keep it going. So that's more political, but it is the same thing that we've got a strength. We're actually doing the right thing, and we're actually seen to doing the right thing, which is a positive in itself.
Thank you, Councillor Creamer. Councillor Hughes.
That's me. Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Just coming back to the previous point on the various recommendations that have been made. Mike stated that they're all expected to be on target. I'm assuming that the outcomes of those will be brought to the next meeting of this committee in December, is it?
Yeah, so our process is that every 6 months we follow up on all recommendations of a high or medium rating or above. Oh, sorry, not above, high or medium rating. And as they fall due, so anything, so for example, next committee in December, anything due before the end of November, which is high or medium, we would follow up on. And where recommendations have not been implemented for whatever reason, it might be capacity, it might be sort of unforeseen circumstances preventing it being implemented, we would report on that for the committee and agree a revised due date with management. And the aim of that is to ensure there's still that focus and concentration around seeing it through rather than stopping at the end of this process, i.e. our report.
Councillor Greensmith.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding these bank reconciliations and aggresso, are we saying that there was no bank reconciliations, or are we saying they weren't done on a timely basis? And is there not some sort of management oversight regarding these reconciliations? Because I would have thought that that is something that is of strong control. Am I reading this wrong, or I'm just not clear on what you're actually saying?
Sorry, no, so the latter is correct. So there is a control in place. So in all three instances, the reconciliations were done. But for instance, the November one was done in January. So we're saying actually that month delay between the month end of November and January is probably longer than what we'd expect. So there is that management control, there is the management oversight. It's just the timeliness, essentially, is what we're picking up on as the key issue there.
Do members have any further comments or questions on this item? No? Okay, thank you very much. Oh yeah, so we'll move on to the those items of workforce strategy. Is that, what number is that?
That's it, yes, it's just an appendice.
Oh right, yeah, okay.
Thank you. So moving on to the appendices, which is the full workforce strategy report. So David's kindly joined us as well to hopefully answer any questions after. But if I just give again a brief summary into the key findings from the report. So this review principally looked at the effectiveness of sort of rolling out the workforce strategy across the council, identifying areas of sort of where staff continuous development and training is identified and then implemented with staff. So we provided a moderate opinion over the design because there were procedures in place as we'd expect to identify those areas. However, we've provided a limited opinion on the effectiveness and principally due to the high finding in finding one, which relates to the completion of performance development reviews, which was only 44% for the current year 2023 and up from 20% the previous year. So considerably lower than what we would expect to see. And the reason why that's so critical is that's partly where a lot of the training needs are identified to work with staff on their appraisal and then implement their training on the back of that. In addition to that, the other findings, the other key sort of medium findings in there are around the documented approach for succession and contingency planning for critical roles, including some specialist roles, which are named in the report, and then also the completion of some mandatory training modules, which were high, but again, they weren't 100% compliant, which we may expect in where the deadline of January 2023 was given. So again, I'll stop there and invite any questions from members.
Any comments or questions from members at this point? No? Yeah, Councillor Creeman.
Yeah, just on the findings on page 66, and that's the bottom bullet point, the council's approach to recruit vacancies arise. It's, to me, just a little unfair in the respect that as a small council, we don't have the flexibility or the spare capacity to actually cover everything anyway. So the policy of actually hiring as vacancies apply is becoming more necessary rather than less. We don't have the extra flexibility we used to have of moving offices, etc. So I don't know. it's true, but at the same time, it's just a little unfair.
You don't want to respond to that, Mike? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, I absolutely think that's a fair point, is that need for flexibility isn't there at times. I suppose what we're picking up on here is the importance of the approach to have plans in place where key staff are to leave or critical roles were become vacant, so they can be filled in a reasonably timely manner. So for us, it's more that sort of that framework in place to have those a documented process for identifying and filling those once they become vacant. But I acknowledge your point.
Any other comments or questions, members? No? Okay, we'll move on then to the recommendations, which is on the front page of the agenda item 5, that we note the internal audit progress report detailing delivery of the 22-23 internal audit plan and the commencement of work for the 23-24 internal audit plan, and 2, members to note the workforce strategy internal audit report. Everyone happy with that? Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, members. Yes, thank you for coming along, David and Andy. But if you want to go now, you're more than welcome. Sorry, there was no questions, but it was all dealt with up here. But thank you for coming. We do appreciate it. Okay, so we'll move to item 6, which is the Corporate Risk Management Scorecard, Q1 22-23. Mike, are you leading on this item?
Yes, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Shuffle across again so we get to the microphone. We're always in the wrong place, aren't we?
Come on, get comfy.
So this is Q1 for the period ending 30th of June 2023, as the Chair just said. There were a number of comments from this committee and I think the Overview and Scrutiny Committee when we presented the Corporate Risk Register last time. So I've taken all of them, I believe, on board, which is to show the direction of travel. So you've got a blue arrow now, up, down or across, for the movement between quarters. You've also got the direction of travel and the scores dating back to Q1 of last year, so you can see the progression or otherwise of that. And I think there was a fair point around the actions outstanding weren't very smart in that we didn't report a target date. So that is also now included in this report. So I hope these improvements are welcomed across the committee. So there are 13 risks, as always, which covers every eventuality for the council. And I think I'll pause between each one to see if there's any questions. Is that okay, Chair? So the first one is basically around budget monitoring. It's around the 12-month period, really, of how the budget moves. And this really relates to the quarterly reporting process that goes to Cabinet. So Q1 went to Cabinet last month, from memory, and it was reporting a nil variance at year end. So we're expecting it'll never happen, but at this point in time, we're not expecting any major variances from the budget, so it's a nil position. Clearly, this can go up and down depending how the year progresses. So as you can see in 22-23, it does vary between D3 down to B3, B1 as the year goes. It went back to B1 because we was forecasting an underspend Q4. So if Q2 this year we forecast an underspend, it will stay at B1. If it's forecasting overspend, it will go up. So that's the way this one flows. So there's nothing really to share on this one, Chair, other than yes. Sorry, when it was written, it did go to 7th of September meeting.
Any questions or comments from members on that item? Carry on then, Mike.
Thank you. So risk 2 is about the medium-term financial strategy, the long-term ability of the council to stay viable. This is our biggest risk, and you can see that in the score at red E4. It has remained at E4 this quarter for the simple reason that the budget report that was approved at full council on the 2nd of March identified a requirement to find 2.857 million of efficiency targets, 1.2 of which is due in next year. So, you know, ideally we'd like to get that 1.2 identified and implemented at the start of next year, April 2024. Actions completed in Q1, so obviously the close down report showed a small underspend of 213,000 or 1.7% against service budgets. The medium-term financial plan I've already mentioned is 2.857, and we have just started this week a base budget exercise. That is reviewing all budgets, all service areas, and seeing where we can identify any efficiency savings moving forward. But as you appreciate, after a long, many years of pressures and cuts in government funding, then it really is getting more and more difficult each year. But we always achieve it, and that's always a positive I see. We usually find a savings a year in advance, and hopefully we will do the same this year as well. Some good news. Several years ago, officers had the foresight to think that the HMRC were incorrectly charging VAT on some leisure centre income. It's been a long court case, many years, but they have finally now accepted the argument, and as of last week, we received 3.5 million as a reimbursement, or a reimbursement of that overpayment. So, although that won't help towards the long-term efficiencies of 2.8 million, it will certainly help boost the bank balances in the short term and get us over this difficult period. In terms of actions outstanding, we need to complete the base budget review. Because of the vacancy in the head of finance and IT, the procurement strategy was not finalised. It was written in draft, but it wasn't finalised. You'll probably all be aware there is now a UK procurement bill currently progressing through Parliament, so it would be a bit naive to finalise that strategy and then change it a week later. So we're having a watchful eye on that as we move forward. Hence the target date for that is next February. We've also want to introduce a charging strategy which will enforce our way of doing things in terms of setting fees and charges and how we identify and benchmark current charges that we do. And again, once we get the head of finance person in place, then we will treat that as quite an urgent action that needs delivering. And the final one there is to complete any internal audit work as recommended by Max a minute ago on the main financial systems. So again, we would hope to get those introduced and delivered fairly quickly, and we're saying December. So I'll pause there.
Just in terms of the charging strategy, Mike, could I just ask, will that, once that's, you know, the work started on that, which committee is that likely to come to? Will it come to members for review and to give views? And
It could come here, Chair. I mean, normally it would go to Cabinet, but it could come here as well. Finance is under your remit as well, so we could do that. And it should set out principles around, you know, discounts and things like that. You know, what age we apply discounts. I know some councils do age 60, some do 65, and I'm sure if I dug deep enough, we probably have variations in treatment as well. So that strategy will set out a corporate approach to things like that.
I think I'd really welcome that, actually, Mike, if that could come to this committee once it's ready. Councillor Hughes?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just coming back to the HMRC refund, which is very welcome and I'm sure will help us. Of that 3.5 million, has it been decided whether we have to pay any of that back to customers? And if so, how much? Or what proportion do we think we may have to pay back?
Thank you, Chair. Tina quite eloquently spelt this out in the Cabinet report, if you wanted to listen to that at the next one. But in short, the conditions of the payment is there was no unjust richness. So, you know, if we were to pay it back, we wouldn't have got the money from the HMRC. And the grounds of that, just trying to keep it really at high level, is because we subsidise leisure. We don't make any money out of leisure, we subsidise it, and therefore that undue enrichment principle applies, and it is all ours to prop up the balances. So that's sort of the way we are.
Councillor Greensmith.
Have we actually received the 3.5 million, or it's physically in the bank account now? fine. Right, that's all I wanted to know.
Yes, it is excellent news, actually. Are there any other comments or questions on this bit? Councillor Elson-Hunt.
Oh, just to say congratulations and very well done indeed. It was a long haul by the sounds of it.
And all down to previous staff before I was here, you know. Hopefully I was at Bassett Law at the time, hopefully Bassett Law's got theirs as well, you know.
Okay, Mike, do you want to move on to number 3?
So risk 3 is about protecting staff, including health and safety. This has stayed at a score of C3 as well. And the reason for that is there's still some work yet to do around health and safety inspections and determining the corporate-wide risk position regarding those. So we've set a date of those for next January. We're also about to roll out the new Civic Centre emergency evacuation procedures, and we've got a target date for those of November. So I think once we get those two ticked off and addressed, this score will start to improve, yeah.
Councillor Strong.
Thank you, Chair. To go back to an earlier report, it did mention DSC assessments and issue of furniture. So I take it that the assessments and risk assessments and the training and the work it mentioned in this includes that, because it's a bit alarming with the nature of the work that people do, depending on computer equipment and working remotely. It seems a bit urgent. Thank you.
I think they were actions coming out of a previous audit, weren't they, that were presented to this committee in terms of ensuring that DSCs were completed, were recorded. So there were from memory, forgive me, I haven't got the audit recommendations in front of me, but there were a couple of actions around training managers to ensure that they check the DSCs, make sure they're all up to date, and that they give staff the correct DSC forms. So that was fed through our corporate health and safety group meeting as an action to managers to make sure that they do go back to staff and ensure that the DSCs are up to date and that they are all stored. Because we looked at various methods of storage and access to make sure that they were, that managers were keeping them together for their teams. So managers now should have their own folders with all those team DSCs in there. I think that was we did feedback to audit, and that will actually should be highlighted in the report that comes next time in terms of the action updates as well. So, yeah.
Councillor Creamer.
Yeah, and just on the blue collar side, more that the pure, I mean, the health and safety inspections and trainings are up to date. That's because it's really worrying when it comes to the blue collar side, parks and open spaces, etc., and the equipment they use. So it's nice to see the health and safety is up to date, and training, particularly for the staff, is up to date. So with the kinetic lifting for etc.
No more members wish to speak? Okay, do you want to carry on, Mike?
Thank you, Chair. So risk 4 again is a score of C3, and this is about the recruitment and retention of staff, very much what Max just presented as part of the audit on the workforce strategy. As you'll be aware, service plans now, following the approval of the Gedling plan at the March Council meeting, service plans have been linked to that and rolled out and developed through the heads of service and local managers. And we're also using the Council's performance management system now much more effectively, Pentana it's called, and all those actions are now logged on there. And it's not only service plans, it's equalities actions, it's corporate risk actions, it's we're getting health and safety on, it's the audit actions. So we're using it much more effectively for managers to keep control of these recommendations. In terms of actions outstanding, there's 7 bullet points there, so it's quite a detailed area, and there's a lot of work going on and David's kindly stayed if he wanted to comment at all, but there's a lot of action going on in David's area around reviewing the movements in national living wage and of course monitoring the discussions around the current pay award that's likely. Doing some work around the introduction of apprenticeships in the council, and again to try and mitigate some of those recruitment difficulties. Working really well with the local universities to facilitate the supported intern placement programme. We're looking at recruitment options, doing things differently. So we've seen how we can improve the website. I mean, Fran, for example, has just done a promotional video to recruit a trainee solicitor. So that's gone down really well. So that's a new approach which we're looking at adopting in certain areas. Agile working, obviously we reacted quite quickly during the times of COVID lockdown. We need to continue those arrangements, and we're looking to see how much more we can go with those. And then, of course, workforce capacity will feature as part of the workforce strategy that's going to be developed. So if I stop there, Chair.
Do members want to make any comments, questions? No? David, did you want to say anything, or were you happy with that?
Thank you, Chair. No, happy with that. I suppose all of these things are quite interlinked as well. And going back to the workforce strategy audit, I think for me, it was a really good audit and really practical and positive in its recommendation, and something that will help us to move forward, I think. I think the item about succession planning and identifying key jobs in the organisation will be really helpful for us as well going forwards. And I suppose being small, and we are small, and teams are quite tight, if there were to be a positive side, I'd say that would be to do with us being quite nimble. And if you look at other local government, local authorities in the area, all of them are saying the same things that we're saying. It's difficult to get people, it's difficult to hold people. It's not a Gedling picture, it's a local government, it's a public sector picture. But we are, as the Chief Executive has just said, making real efforts to try to make changes, and we are nimble enough to do that.
Thank you, David. That's really useful. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you sort of sometimes you look at, I suppose, the area of planning actually, and I've been involved in planning in other authorities, and we saw there that the private sector could offer so much more than what actually local government could sometimes, and it created so many challenges to try and retain those staff. So this is an ongoing issue, but we are hopefully finding a way through it. Thank you, David. Are there any other comments or questions? No? We'll carry on moving through.
Thank you, Chair. So risk 5 is around the use of technology and the fun that brings in terms of data security and other measures. What's happened in Q1? So I think I reported last time we had a piece of work around the baseline assessment undertaken by a private contractor. We've received the findings of that review, and amongst the recommendations was to go a step further and start producing and working on an IT digital strategy. So that's one of the actions outstanding. But in terms of what we completed that quarter as well, we've also had an ongoing review of the disaster recovery plan. And we're looking at where we can place the second storage area network. It needs to be a few miles away from this building in case something happens catastrophic to this building, and we can still continue operations. So we're looking at that review as well. And also we're aware that digital transformation certainly wants looking at and reviewing in this council. So we're open to transformation and change. So we've established an internal digital transformation team of 4 people at the moment, working part-time, so they're doing their own job and this as well. But they've got real enthusiasm around digital and the future and use of robots and everything else. So, you know, we're harnessing that, probably not expertise, but that enthusiasm and some expertise to see what we can do to develop the council. And of course, when we start working on the digital strategy, and we are out to procurement at this point in time to recruit an external consultant to help with that, a lot of the work will go hand in hand with the work and progress with the digital transformation team. Also, we've reviewed and updated information security policy, and that was approved by Cabinet in September. And I'll stop there, Chair.
Councillor Creamer.
Yeah, just a question. I mean, it's a bit early, I suppose, because it's to do with the strategy. But are we looking into storage and using the cloud rather than actual sites, etc. as well? I mean, lots of councils have actually gone for, just using the cloud, basically. So it doesn't matter where you are or what fails. Hopefully, it's still safe somewhere up there.
Chair, that'll be part of the review, so I really can't say what the professionals' view will be, but it'll certainly be a consideration.
Just in terms of the actions on this, Mike, if we do if we are addressing these actions, how likely is it that, I suppose we could ask this for every item, but, how likely is it that we could move this risk to lower risk as we go forward? Because there aren't that many actions on there, and it sounds like we're already working towards them.
I would hope we could move it slightly, Chair. There's always going to be a risk of data breach. That's the modern world we live in, and but when that happens, or if that happens, then we'll react on the risk score accordingly. So I'd hope we could start to improve this risk score.
Thank you. Okay, shall we carry on, Mike?
Okay, thank you. Risk 6 is about protecting our physical assets. So this is our buildings. Q1, we've more or less finished the general condition surveys of all buildings now, which is main buildings, it's pavilions, it's depot buildings, it's toilets and community centres, things like that. So we've more or less finished those now. But of course, it's not a one-off thing, the cyclical, and we have to start the whole process again. So, so it always will be there. We've also been looking at introducing a new compliance regime. So this is where we hold appropriate registers for fire, asbestos and water testing. We've always done this, but perhaps each service manager, say a community centre manager, held his own details, his or her details on the site. We're now bringing this into a more comprehensive basis and bringing it under one team, so we know exactly where each building's assessment is. So in terms of outstanding, we need to start that cycle again. We're aware we haven't got a property asset management plan that is updated, so that's quite key in terms of looking at buildings and setting a strategy of where we go, and that should show whether we keep it, retain it, whether we invest it or dispose of it. So all that should come out of that review. And then, of course, we've got a number of temporary accommodation units now. We've also been buying some new properties off the market. So we need to ensure that they are properly inspected and all the records are maintained on a central database as well. So all that work is hopefully be delivered in the next few months.
Councillor Strong.
Thank you, Chair. This might be a cheeky question, but has the survey included crumbling concrete?
Obviously, a lot of the surveys were done before the rack issue came about, but they were undertaken by proper surveyors, so I would expect that they would have been picked up as part of those reviews. And I've not been made aware, Chair, that we do have any buildings in our portfolio built with rack, but we wait and see. We're reviewing all the registers and things, but at the moment, nothing's been identified.
That's kind of a relief to hear. Okay, so any other questions or comments? No. We'll move to item 7 then. Well, sorry, 7.
Yeah, risk 7. This is about changes in legislation. This is very much in Fran's hot seat area, isn't it? So at the moment, it's a score of C3. And there's a few things here. So the Brazil case, and that's around irregular work patterns, has now been referred to the Supreme Court for determination, but we believe that, has that been concluded now, David? I'm trying to remember.
It has, Mike. It's included, but we've taken advice both sort of locally from legal colleagues, but also from the LGA lawyers, and we've, I think, found a way forward with that, which would be to probably continue with the methods that we have for the time being. So that risk really has diminished.
Thank you, David. And we've also completed the review of the information asset register. So that's activity during Q1. So what's outstanding? Well, we've still got the McLeod pension case. Again, going very slow. David's nodding, so I'm right on this one. But we don't think that will affect us particularly in terms of material impacts in terms of finance. And the big one, which is always a big concern, is where we get with the waste strategy and Environmental Act implications around collecting food waste and free garden waste and everything else. And there's no funding clearly identified at a national level yet for that. So that is a massive risk, and I would hope it's on everybody's risk register in terms of public sector organisations.
Can I just ask, is that on hold then at the moment, Mike, or has there been an extension? Because I assume the date for that or decision was imminent, or has that been extended now?
I think the original date has been extended. I think food waste for us, and I don't know whether it's a Nottinghamshire issue, is now 2027. But I don't know whether that's on a national basis or just Nottinghamshire, but that's that, and there's no swing one way or the other on whether you know, garden waste would be imposed on everyone as a free service or not. So it's still being debated by much more important people than me in London.
Councillor Creamer.
Just literally, just on that, on the waste, can't disagree with the idea, but the problem is, as I see it, and I think we ought to be shouting this out, is actually the resources to do it. They're expecting us to do it with existing resources, and it's just not possible. It's just not possible. We have to increase the lorry fleet. We'd have to increase the drivers. We've got problems with, as I said earlier, in actually gaining staff. And to actually do it as they would like it done, we would have to have, you know, a large increase in the staff. So I think I think it's well known that most councils are actually stressing that it's impossible to do without the resources. But I think we have to keep shouting that if they do this, environmentally, we've got no problems with it environmentally, but we need the resources to do it. We can't be expected to do it. It will bust us.
Completely concur with that, Councillor Creamer. Okay. Any other comments on this one? Councillor Hunt.
Yeah, the garden waste. We live in central everywhere anyway. A further bin, you won't be able to walk the pavements of Netherfield. It's just completely unworkable. I can't see that having legs. I really can't. And I think, as Jim says, we need to make our case.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. I am originally from Newcastle-under-Lyme, where we at one point had 9 ways of disposing of waste and recycling. So trust me, it does happen in some places. No other comments? No? Okay, Mike, do you want to carry on?
Thank you. So risk 8 is around procurement and potential contractual breaches. Actions completed during Q1. We had an audit again from Max in the previous quarter, and we've started to implement some of those. I don't have the details, but I know we've ticked a few of those off already. Still some to be delivered in the following quarters. The big one here for me, and it's been on here a long time again, was the expectation of the vacant head of finance post. So again, it will be a high priority when he or she is, or they, is appointed. Is the new contract register and contract management module, which will add on to the current arrangement. So I've put a target date, quite optimistic target date of June 24, but we'll go for that and see how it goes. The other thing is, some indemnity clauses now are unrealistic in terms of what people and contractors are willing to accept. So we did a similar piece of work to reviewing this for I think it was the leisure system, where we had to change 1 or 2 of the indemnity requirements. So there's a piece of work there ongoing, looking at all contractual relationships to see if minor tweaks need looking at. Thank you.
Anything on that, members? No? Mike, carry on.
So 9 is about compensation trends, one-off challenges. This is A3, so it's quite a low score, thankfully, which is really good. There's work ongoing by David and heads of service around reducing the number of agency staff in the council, particularly at the depot, and moving some of them onto employed status. There was also a report to the Environment and Licensing Committee about a challenge to taxi licensing fees. This has now been resolved, and we've initiated a process of refunds. They've been live now for about 5 months. Take-up has been quite slow, to be honest, so we're going to relaunch it and see if there's anybody else who is yet to claim, and they will come forward. So we're about there on that one, but in terms of actions outstanding, it's these a watching date around employment status and worker rights, so we just need to keep a watchful eye on that.
Okay. Anything from members? No? Carry on, Mike.
Thank you. So 10 is around customer services, customer satisfaction and customer expectations. All of those, again, quite a low score, B1, which means we're doing really well, and we do have a fantastic customer services team, but obviously I'm biased, but I think they are superb, and you know, not just those, but across the council as well, all services that deal with customers directly, you know, deliver a fantastic job. In terms of actions completed this quarter, we continue to monitor the complaints and we look at the underlying reasons for those complaints to see if there are any trends, and we take them and review them to SLT on a quarterly basis. And fantastic document, Fran will be smiling on this one, a new customer services strategy, really good, clear, concise, and really sets out our strategy and standards moving forward. In terms of actions outstanding, we're looking at and monitoring the situation around customer services caused by staffing shortfalls in terms of capacity. We're also looking to introduce a new web chat service, again through the customer services team, which should be really helpful to our residents and customers out there. And really good news, we're going to trial a new outreach service in Bestwood area, sort of mirroring the really positive one we do in Carlton and Calverton already. But Fran might want to say something, how great a team is.
Yes, they are. Yeah, I mean, the strategy was a really good piece of work from the team, and it was really a team effort in terms of the team who work with the customers, understanding what's important to them, what are the areas we need to improve on, how we can engage better, both face-to-face and digitally. I think as well, just to mention the outreach hubs, currently running in Carlton and Calverton and a trial in Bestwood, I think they've been a great success, and the uptake from residents has been far more than I think we expected. In fact, I spoke to Nick today, and she was down at the hub and having to move rooms because we just can't fit in the number of people that are coming in to speak to us. So really, really positive engagement with residents, particularly the harder to reach residents, so the people who can't necessarily travel all the way to Arnold. So it's, yeah, really positive, and it's great that it's expanding slightly wider across the borough. And of course, with the new IT equipment that the staff have and the ability to have soft phones, there's no downtime, so they can have those face-to-face sessions. But if there's a quieter time, they can revert straight back onto to the phone calls and online queries. So there's no impact on output for the team.
I suppose for me to just ask Fran, obviously it's good to hear about the outreach service. Yeah. I do always sometimes worry that the more we sort of modernise and we move forward, and I'm sure you've got this, I suppose the question is, have we got this checked? That we're making sure we're not leaving people behind, because I think we have still got a generation of people that don't use online or choose not to use online because they've not been brought up with it like a lot of generations these days. And I think we should always try and keep that at the forefront of our thoughts. I know that me and Sandra, we deal with people in Daybrook sometimes that very elderly, haven't even got a mobile phone, which sounds crazy in this day and age, but we have still got a generation of people in that situation, and I think it's important that we keep that in mind. And just in terms of the web chat, Fran, is that sort of managed by a person, or is it sort of developed by AI or something?
No, it's managed at the moment. It's managed by a person, so it is an actual person on the chat, not automated. I mean, there may come a point where we can sort of signpost different documents, but it was still, it's still a I say face to face, you know what I mean? It's you're actually getting a person on the end of the web chat. Just a different way to access. And your point in terms of accessibility for people who perhaps aren't as we're well aware from our residents, there's people who simply don't have the ability to use digital services. They don't have Wi-Fi, or they don't have a phone or a computer, and also people who may find it more difficult. We're certainly not, whilst we are trying to improve our digital offer because we want to encourage that digital access, we're certainly not stopping other means of accessibility. We, as part of the resident survey last year, we had some data back around accessibility to customer services. And, Nick and the team are using that data and looking at ways, what is the best way to engage with certain residents? We know our demographic, we know sort of different protected characteristics amongst the residents, and it's important to us that we do. And in the strategy, there is a section about equalities and how we can make sure that we do engage with residents in a way that is right for them.
Thank you, Fran. That's reassured me. Anything from members? No? Do you want to carry on then, Mike?
Carry on, nearly there, Chair. So risk 11 is around council's reputation. Current score, again, quite low, B2. The only thing really we're watching is we made a commitment to be carbon neutral by 2030, which is extremely difficult without any resources. So, it is a bit of a worry for me for how we achieved that in 7 years' time. But, we're doing what we can. We have a new carbon management strategy approved last year, I think it was. We have an action plan resulting from that, and a lot of actions coming from that the groups are working on. And to really give it the status it needs, we've set up a new internal corporate environment group as well, with all senior members of staff on that who can tell us or seek help or give us assurance on what actions have been delivered or how they're going to deliver those. So I'll leave it there, Chair.
Am I right in thinking, Mike, that we use some sort of biofuel in some of our vehicles? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's called hydrogenated vegetable, or HVO. So at the APSI conference last week, they did a survey how many councils have gone electric. Very few people put their hands up. How many have gone hydrogen? Even less put their hand up. How many have moved to hydrogenated vegetable oil? We were the only one. So we're almost the leaders in that field in this country. So quite pleased we reacted very quickly to that, and it removes 90% of the dirty diesel, if you like, from our vehicles.
Thank you, Mike. That's brilliant to hear that we are actually trying to make a difference despite the challenges. Do you want to carry on? I don't think there's any other comments from members.
Okay, so risk 12, grand title, but it's always all about incidents and emergency planning, our response under that. So what have we done quarter one? Well, we had a heads of service manager workshop to update the business continuity plans. That was delivered in May, very, very successful. And a couple of weeks ago in SLT, we saw the results of that work where everybody submitted and talked around improvement areas and learning points from doing these business continuity plans together. So they're very robust. I think the next stage is now just testing them on a regular basis. We also, well, not we, the health and safety manager and the emergency planning manager did a really good document where she's created a Gedling hot weather plan. Probably not needed today, but during the summer it was very useful, and it's there for future years as well. And it's a really good document and very useful, and it sets out how we would react in a hot weather emergency. So in terms of anything outstanding, we've talked before about trying to work with the County Council to help us with our emergency planning side. Again, it's down to recruitment issues at their end. So the team here are picking that up at the moment. We need to continue the update of the business continuity plans. There is a watching brief on the requirements of Martin's Law, and this came about after the Manchester Arena bombings. So we're watching the requirements of that, and it's about large gatherings. I think it's over 800 people in a gathering. You need to take extra measures. And of course, summer's over, the hot weather, and now we need to start reviewing our winter preparations again, as well as a separate document. I'll leave it there, Chair.
Anything from members on that one? No? Carry on then, Mike.
Thank you. So the last one is real long term. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road. Are there any socio-economic trends of showing what's happened? We know we've got an ageing population in our borough, so it's how we react to that, whether we need to change provision of some of our services towards more elderly residents. And you know, we do think we're on top of that. We are moving services, as Fran said. We're still offering not only digital, but the other routes as well. But there's always more we can do, and that's where this would be picked up. And we're quite keen to see how that progresses under the new mayor as part of the combined authority next year. Thank you.
Okay, anything else from members? No? Are we happy to note the progress of actions identified within the corporate risk register? All those in favour? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Fran. I think that sometimes it's really helpful to go through that step by step just to get, you know, a bit more detail about some of the things that we're doing to, you know, to tackle the risks that the council faces. That's been really useful. We move to item 7. I haven't got any other item which I consider urgent, and the meeting is now closed. But if members can stay behind, we're just going to have an update. Thank you.